Hey everybody, in this video we're going to start a Postman collection to start testing out the catalog service that we've already created here. So here's our controller for products, and this is what we want to create some test requests around. So over here in Postman, what I'm going to do is create a new collection, and this will be our catalog.service. And then within here I'm going to create a subfolder for our products endpoint. And then within that, again, what we have so far is we have the ability to create a product, update a product, and get a product. So first one we'll do, so that we have something to get, is we'll actually create a product. So create is using post, and update is using put. So we want to post. And one of the first things we have to do here is in our environments, I did cheat ahead of time and create a local host environment set of variables where we have a base URL for our APIs, a Firebase key, a username, and a password. So when we call our API, we have to be able to authenticate to it with a token that we've received from Firebase, hence why we have the Firebase key, username, and password. So for the Firebase key, what you would need to do is go into your project settings here. Here's the project settings for my app. And what you're looking for is this web API key. And that's what you would set the Firebase key to. And then for the username and the password, what I did was under authentication, I created a test account called shopping@keystoneco.com, set a password on it, and that's the username and the password I'm using for testing purposes over here. So we've got our environment variables that we can use. And so back in our collection here on our request, this is going to be create product. And we are going to reference our base URL, and we're going to call the products endpoint. And we need to pass in a body of the product we want to create. So it's going to be a JSON body. So if we go into our create product request here, we can see what, again, as a reminder, we want a code, a name, and a description. So we'll put in a code here, ABC123, and a name. This will be product 1, and a description. And one other thing we still have to do, though, is actually get an authentication token. And we want to do that with every single one of our requests. So what I'm going to do is up here on our collection, I'm going to go into scripts, and on pre-request, I have a script here that we want to run every time we make a request. So instead of making you watch me type all of this, I've cheated again and copied and pasted it over. But the gist of it is, we're going to keep track of the tokens that we get back from Firebase. There's going to be an ID token and a refresh token. So if we don't have a refresh token, that means we haven't called Firebase before. And therefore, we want to call our endpoint. Here's where we're passing in our Firebase key. And here's where we're passing in the username and the password that we created for our account. And what we get back is, on the response, we're going to get an ID token and a refresh token. And we're going to store those in environment variables called bearer token and refresh token. If we've already got a refresh token, we don't need to pass the username and the password. Instead, we're going to, again, reference our Firebase key, and we are going to pass in our refresh token to get a new ID token on the response. So that script will run before every single request in this collection. And the other thing we want to do is when we get our response back, we're storing the ID token here in our bearer token environment variable. So on authorization, we want to pass in our bearer token. And we don't, it's going to complain because we don't have that variable in our environment yet. It will get created, though, as soon as that script runs. So we've got our bearer token set, and then one last thing we want to just double check is on our request here under authorization, we want to make sure it's inherit auth from parent, which means it's going to use whatever settings we just set at the collection level. So let's go ahead and send off our request. I don't think I have the APIs running, apologies. Let's fire those up. And once this fires up, we'll send a request, and that should create a product for us and return the ID of the product that it actually created. So it did. We got a 200 response, and we got the ID of the product that got created. So what we can do is we can clone this guy. What I'm going to now create is our update. So if we come in here and we say update product, That's going to be a put rather than a post. And one of the things we need to include is the ID of the product we want to update. So that's the ID that we just got back in our response during the create. And in the body, let's change it to 456. We'll just make updates to each of those fields, and we can try sending off our update. And we got a 200 response there, and that worked. Now we get back the ID that matches the ID we passed in, which tells us that the update was successful and we didn't create anything new. And the last thing we want to do is be able to retrieve a product by its ID. So we're going to create a new request called get product. Again, rely on our base URL. We're going to paste in our ID. And this request, well, there's no body, it's just a get. We send a request off, and voila, we get back our response. And you'll note that it does have the values that we updated, so our update worked, right? So originally we had this as ABC123. You can see it was successfully updated to 456. So yeah, we have some initial Postman tests here that we can use for testing purposes going forward. In our next video, we're actually going to start to create the foundations for sending integration events. And the integration events are what are going to allow us to coordinate and synchronize information between microservices.
Time for a shameless plug for my personal LLC, Keystone Code. I've been doing software development for 20 plus years now, and I've been lucky enough that I've played a lot of the different roles that go into software development, from back-end developer, front-end developer, full-stack developer, team lead, head of engineering, chief technology officer, business analyst, and architect. So if your agency or company has any needs across those different areas, whether it be a need from just understanding what those roles are, or have a need to fill one of those roles, either from a training perspective, a mentor perspective, or an actual hands-on perspective, feel free to reach out. So I can be reached at my email address, dmichael@keystonecode.com, or on the website at keystonecode.com. Thanks.